I'm Chris Nessie, host of Behind the Mic, Voices of the EPN, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Hey, welcome back. Steve here, and today I'm talking with Al Olson. Al is Smee, the singing executioner, a Renaissance Festival performer. He's hilarious, he's funny, and you're going to get a chance to hear him as Smee, which is going to be really cool. He's written an awesome book. It's called The History of the American Renaissance Festival. You are going to love this talk, and what an incredible walk down memory lane. The book is filled with images of the many performers and villages of the fairs. The stories that are captured here are just incredible. I got to tell you, once you listen to this, you got to buy his book, and you got to go get your ticket and go visit a fair, a festival, or 2 or 3. So awesome. And make sure at the end, he reminds you, go to thesingingexecutioner.com, and you get a chance there where you could purchase a autographed book. So good stuff. Thanks for listening. Thanks for sharing. And oh, by the way, it'd be so cool if you went to my website, stephenmiletto.com/reviews, and left a review. Could you do that, please? That would be so cool. You know, say a few nice words and maybe 5 stars. Thanks so much. You are awesome. Enjoy the show.
It's the Education Podcast, your favorite show, with lots of groovy guests and they share what they know. So crank it up to 10 and let your neighbors know that here's another show with Dr. Steve Miletto. Teaching, learning, leading K12. Teaching, learning, leading K12. Teaching, learning, leading K12. With Dr. Steve Miletto.
Al Olson is one of a select handful of eccentric, quirky, and entertaining people who helped grow the American Renaissance Festivals into being a very popular ticket. He shares his story in his comprehensive book, A History of the American Renaissance Festival. While attending the University of Minnesota, working nights in a parking ramp, and pumping iron at the Dove's Bicep gym, he also performed his original songs in the same coffee houses that Bob Dylan had a few years earlier on the west bank of the Mississippi. The artistic director of the Mississippi Renaissance Festival attended a theatrical presentation of his original works at theater in the round and hired him on the spot. He began performing at Ren Fairs as a member of the group Pumpkin, writing original Renaissance music. After less than a season, he noted the greater crowd impact of groups like Penn and Teller, Avner the Eccentric, the Flying Karamazov Brothers, and Puke and Snot, which I love that name. As a result, Smee and Blog, which I also love, were formed out of frustration and a desire to present something unique. The tandem comedic vaudeville act performed for 36 years, singing and dancing across the U.S. and Canada at 56 Renaissance festivals and medieval fairs. After the act stopped performing in 2013, he continued as a singing executioner and Renaissance and medieval fairs in Texas and Oklahoma to this day. For the past decade, he has served as the master of properties for Texas Ballet Theater. For 6 years, he was the general manager and co-founder of the Tennessee Renaissance Festival. Over the past 2 decades, he has performed voiceovers for radio commercials for various festivals. Earlier in his career, he produced a musical album and served on the board of directors for Real Community Theater in Minneapolis. He's been interviewed on dozens of radio and TV shows and has been featured in over 100 newspaper articles. Olson, who grew up in South Minneapolis, now resides in Fort Worth, Texas. And for more information, I'm going to have this stuff in my show notes, but you can go to singingexecutioners.com and smeebooks.square.site. And I'll have that in the show notes so it's easy to find. Al, thanks for joining me today. Say hi to everyone.
Thank you. Hello, Stephen, and hello, everyone.
Well, glad you're here. And I got to first ask you this. So are you Smee?
Oh, I am indeed. As a matter of fact, many more people know me as Smee than as Al. It was a name that popped out of my partner's mouth along with the idea for the act, all in one fell swoop. And I developed Smee as a 6'4" executioner in a black hood with a 7-foot axe as a children's character.
That is so awesome. That is so cool. We're going to talk some more about this because I got to get you to tell a couple of Smee and blog stories. But before we go any further, just do a little bit to tell my guests, my listeners, what a Renaissance Festival is.
A Renaissance Festival is an event that is created to give the visitor the impression that they've stepped back in time into a 16th century village that is immersed in celebration and invited to eat, drink, and be merry. They offer in-your-face, interactive, live entertainment, a lot of foods, hand foods, ethnic foods, everything on a stick, and a variety of alcoholic and non-alcoholic beverages. And the shows are lined with shops that have a wide variety of arts and crafts, and some even offering demonstrations.
That's so cool. I had a blast going to these, and I've been a former history teacher, and just a person myself. I like going to them, but then it became kind of a thing to do with some of my teacher friends and go, and then after a while, students would find out that you like going, and so they'd join you there, and so you have these groups that would show up, and it's just a whole nother world. You know, you're in a different place when you walk through the gates or whatever they have to introduce you to the world you're about to walk in. And it's just cool because your book, which we're going to get into in just a minute, just really brings back those thoughts and celebrates the people who made those worlds come to life so real. And kudos to you. Cool.
Well, thank you.
So I had two friends, brothers, and this is how I first learned about Renaissance festivals. They were brothers. I got to know them during college, and they made their own armor. They created chainmail. They searched high and low for a good sword, and they were constantly learning how to sword fight where they didn't kill each other, and doing pretty good at it. And I don't know if they ever did more than just attend the festivals, because they'd go to the festivals in these outfits. And but they introduced me to the festival south of Atlanta, because they were in Florida where I got to know them, and they told me about one in just around the south end of Atlanta near Fayette County. And I'll never forget the first time I went there. As I approached the gates, I mean, there's all these people, and there's an assortment. So you have people like me who are just dressed in, summer type clothing type affair. And then you had others who, they're in all kinds of medieval to Renaissance type outfits and carrying all kinds of things. And then one of my first memories, by the way, is the first person I met as I went through was selling pickles. And I thought it was cool that you had a pickle story in here about a character who did pickles. But the first one I met she was selling pickles, and she was talking to us. I'm going to buy a pickle, and that was it's a fun memory there, because it ended up with my funny mother-in-law who she went right along with her, and was next thing there's a whole conversation about pickles going on. But just awesome stuff. Could you talk about the people who perform at these events? I mean, who were they? How'd they live?
Well, there is such a wide variety of people that work the shows. And one of the reasons I had to write the book was that back in the 80s, Renaissance festivals were treated as sort of a sitcom joke. And by that point, I had become aware of many of the people that worked the shows. And they were intelligent people with incredible backgrounds, had many other choices in life, but they chose to do Renaissance festivals because you could invent your own reality. In my case, I had a degree in physics. Niccolo the Juggler has a Harvard degree. Michael Marzella was a journalist. He was the feature editor for the St. Pete Times. He wrote articles for the Smithsonian, but he turned down a job with USA Today because he was having too much fun being king. And nice. Teller of Penn and Teller was a Latin teacher. But as far as where they live, tents, trailers, some shows offer apartments above the booths, that sort of thing. In my early years, I had I graduated from a tent to a 1982 Mazda pickup truck with a 7-foot bed and a topper, which I had named the Mobile Survival Pod.
Nice. That is so awesome. One of the things that I just never forget about it, and is that, and most of my attendance happened from the early 90s through early 2000s, and even though I've gone a couple times off and on over the last couple of years, but it's not been as often as I was way back then, and it's just such a cool thing, because everything from being admonished by someone who's looking for someone, and I couldn't give them the answer, to some very serious horseback riding type lessons that were happening in a little area with kind of like prior entertainment before a joust type thing. And there's just any number of people, as well as those who are selling their wares, selling things that they'd made, crafty type stuff. That was so cool. So just good stuff. So how are these run and operated?
Well, there are most shows are individually owned. There are a couple of corporations, Festivals Incorporated and Renaissance Entertainment Corporation, that own a number of them, but most shows are one or two shows per owner. And they have to have a staff that's involved for the site crew, entertainment director, craft coordinator, promotions department, as well as the administrative staff. And they to man the shows, they hire a combination of local people and traveling rennies who will work the shows as well.
That's awesome. That's so cool. And your book is filled with pictures and images from everything from tickets to IDs to posters to then just the images of the actors themselves in and out of costume. and it's just awesome. I love it. One of the things that I always loved about going to the Renaissance festivals is the humor associated with many of the characters, because I love dumb jokes. All right, that's my favorite thing, and it always drove my wife nuts because I'm gonna eventually go see multiple times whoever it is that had some of the best ones of that. And I remember too specifically, you told some of the best dumb jokes I'd ever heard. What type of preparation did many of the performers put into their characters and performance? I mean, this is kind of going with what you just said a minute ago.
Well, of course, your jugglers and your acrobats are going to be rehearsing all week. They have to constantly stay in shape and keep together on that. The best part of performing at a Renaissance festival is you get immediate feedback from the crowd because you're so close to them. And that's a great way to develop what you're working on. As a matter of fact, I came up with a line a number of years ago for a volunteer. You invite him up on stage, give him the opportunity to do something funny, and he fails at it. So the line was, "Joe, it's guys like you that give William Shatner the courage to return to the stage."
Nice.
Well, the first time I delivered it, John Stetson, a well-traveled magician, mentalist, and MC, was backstage. I came backstage and he said, "That was funny, and they hated you." Because, of course, you've got nothing but Star Trek fans out in the audience.
Of course.
And it took me about 2 weekends of trying different ways to present the lines so that it would work. I finally found out that the way I had to do it was to basically apologize for saying it by going, "It's guys like you that give William Shatner the courage to return to the stage," and kind of shake my head like I'm ashamed of it.
Nice. That's awesome. That would be hilarious, by the way, knowing that your different audiences, especially if you travel different places, could be there's going to be different types of people that are attending these, I can only imagine that the different groups that you ran into that might either take ownership, take umbrage to what it is that you're saying or whatever. So just what a cool thing. In a minute, I'm going to ask you a little bit more about Smee and Blog, but I gotta, you were a performer. So what's it like to perform at those festivals? I mean,
Well, it's wonderfully addictive. One of my friends said the hardest thing is, if you want to get out, is actually getting out of it, because it's a lot of fun. I mean, there is such a joy in actually getting a good response from an audience. And in my case, as well as doing stage shows, you are required to be a character in the lanes. And I just love the interactions, especially since I focus on little tiny kids. I love the lane work as well. In Iowa one time, we were changing stages, a big stage, just hundreds of people just milling about. And I'm standing there, again, a 6'4" executioner, a black hood with a 7-foot axe. And a little 3-year-old girl comes up to me with tears in her eyes and says, "I can't find my mommy."
Nice. To go to the executioner to ask the question. Very nice. So did you help her?
Oh yeah. No, I've had my daughters and granddaughters at Renaissance festivals, and crowds can make you nervous in those situations.
I can imagine. That was what a funny thing though, to just totally. It doesn't matter what you look like, trying to figure out if you could help her figure out where things were. You know, one of the things that I just, you know, so you're walking around as an executioner, and now, you know, you and Blog, your stuff was singing and some humor that is going to what would be a good way of describing your humor?
Well, it's Renaissance entertainment in a jugular vein is one of the phrases we used.
Nice.
Since you like dumb jokes, did you hear the one about the cook who was convicted of trying to poison his master?
No.
Yeah, he was given his choice between a steak or a chop.
Nice. So do you have someone with the drum set?
We need one, yes.
Excellent. What a cool. All right, so we got to talk about Smee and Blog for a minute. So how did you guys? And I've read what you said and how you talked about it in your book. So can you just give the audience a little bit of a description of Smee and Blog? Which, by the way, if you go to the Singing Executioner, you can see pictures. So.
Yes, as a matter of fact, you can see us introducing or roasting Charles Barkley and introducing Billy Crystal to take over for us at Barkley's Celebrity Roast, which was one of the more interesting gigs we did, along with being backstage entertainment for the Rolling Stones in St. Paul, Minnesota many years ago.
So cool.
But no, we started out writing folk music back in the 60s. Of course, out of frustration at the festival, we came up with the act. We had developed basically a number of bits working with King Henry VIII, George Herman, at the Minnesota Renaissance Festival, who held several shows a day that were an excuse for all these comic bits. And over a period of a couple of years, we wrote so many bits for the events that we strung them together into an act. And we were just lucky that it was early on in the development of Renaissance festivals, and there weren't that many themed acts out there. So we really had our choice of where we wanted to work.
That's so cool. So you got to. I mean, so first of all, your height, and Blog's not that short, but it's not your height. So that. I mean, you got to talk a little bit about just how that the idea, I mean, because a singing executioner who tells stories or tells funny jokes is, just talk a little bit more about what, I mean, like the first couple of times you did that and what, you know, the reaction, because it has to be like gasoline on fire type thing where at some point we got to keep doing this.
Actually, our first appearance was at one of the King's shows where we had been doing music. And we came out and did the bit, and I was told that people were doing spit takes and everything else behind us. It was successful from the very start, and so we just took it to the road. You did mention earlier about different crowds. Our favorite crowd was up in New England because we do a number of Broadway parodies.
Nice.
And start stretching your noose. I'm cleaving today, and whatever. But up in New England, they recognize things from the verse. Most of the country, you have to get to the chorus before you get the recognition laughs.
That's awesome. That's cool. So I can understand that would. Yes, you got to. That would be an interesting thing about crowds too. Is that which things they react to? I mean, did you find that as part of?
Oh, and what day it is. It oddly enough, you really find that every day has its own character at Renaissance festivals. There are some days that are craft buying days, some days that are big entertainment days. I mean, some days you can do no wrong as an entertainer, and other days you really have to work to pull any energy out of them. It could be the weather, it could be the humidity, who knows? But they really do have their own characters, different days.
That's so cool. That's really so cool. All right. So why do you think Americans are infatuated with going to Renaissance festivals? I mean, why has it lasted so long?
Realistically, I think that an awful lot of people are not really that fulfilled in their day-to-day life, and it is absolutely an escape from that and a chance to be entertained, to be treated like royalty, to have a lot of fun, and just get outside and get away from whatever it is you're leaving back at home. It's also a safe place for people to dress up and pretend to be anything they want to be. And that's important to a lot of people as well.
Hey, that's so cool. Because that's, one of the things that I learned was that you literally could be in, you had to just let your world go. And if you really wanted to, just be part of what's going on, because the characters, many of them, if you just go with it, the next thing you know is you're sucked into a whole nother world where whether they're making fun of you or whether you're being presented as the finder of, I had picked up some fake gold coins, and that's what I got chastised about, was because she was telling me, don't pick those up. And it was some character, that was what she was doing. She was throwing these coins in different places, and then she'd get mad at you for picking up her coins. And I just thought it was funny.
They shows teach their lane people. You have to come up with a character, you have to come up with a bio for the character, and then you have to come up with an excuse to interact with people. And that's a designed portion of the festivals.
So cool, because that's what really, and that's what I mean by, if you allow yourself to be in that world, if you just stand off to the side or whatever and you're just a spectator, that's not as fun. It's literally letting those actors become, whatever they're going to talk to you about. So that's an awesome aspect of that. So one of the things that I was wondering that if you could talk about with this is, why do you think the festivals just continue to be popular? I mean, because we talked a little bit about that just a second ago, and it's this whole thing about being able to dress up and leave troubles behind. But can we go a little deeper into that? Because you guys did SME and blog for, did you say 30-something years?
Yes. And it continued to work for us. The festivals appeal to almost everyone. For instance, when I was in charge of the Tennessee show, I was approached by a farmer, a very stern-faced farmer, who wanted to speak to somebody in charge, and I was prepared for whatever it might be. And he came up and he says, "I ain't never seen anything like this, but this is great."
Nice. That's awesome. That's funny. That's cool. Do you have? Let's talk some more. Do you have a character of somebody that somebody else did that you really kind of like thinking about, that was a cool one of those to be around there?
There's a fellow, Gordy Boudreau, who was brilliant as a beggar. He could just mess with people, and whatever they did, he was hilarious. He's now doing actually a rather blue show, which he did off Broadway and got rave reviews for. So that's kind of the direction he's going now. But I've always loved his work. You were talking about pickles earlier. James Pickett, who was one of the original pickle men, he could stand at the front gate as a crowd was pushing in through the gate and just boom, 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 nailing people with some sort of comic thing, calling attention to whatever. And it was just nonstop machine gun fire, funny stuff. Nice. that he would do. And in the book, as I say, he probably provided more entertainment as a pickle seller than many performers ever did at festivals.
That's awesome. That's so cool. Your book is beautiful, by the way. the history of the American Renaissance Festival. It's chock full of the photographs and the stories. You know, is there, when you're gathering this, did you run into, were people excited to tell you their stories and share? And because I know others worked with you on it.
Well, for the most part, I knew almost everybody individually that I talked to. And oddly enough, as far as interviewing the producers of shows that I hadn't worked, they were almost more open to me than the producers of the shows that I did work.
Wow.
But no, it was a good experience. I had taken my photographer Mike Barrich around in the mid '90s to 4 shows, and he took world-class photos of different people with their craft or in action. And so that kind of determined who I interviewed. I wanted to put a little story behind these pictures.
Well, you did awesome at that. It's just cool because it's each of the sections and chapters are you can just get lost in some of them, especially if you've ever attended any of these. You start thinking about whether you went to the ones where these characters were or not. It really brings home some of the people you may have met along the way. One of the things you talk about in the book is that there are really kind of 2 different types of festivals. They kind of fall into a grouping, if you will. I was wondering if you could talk to that just a little bit.
Yes, the pleasure fairs, which started it all out in California, became a living history event. And so costuming, language, even colors of clothing were very important to them. We, of course, were highly anachronistic, doing Broadway tunes and rock tunes refigured. And so we, of course, did not get hired by any of these events. There were a few east of the Rockies as well. The Sterling show in northern New York also followed the historical side of things. And that's fine. I do find it a little humorous that where they drew the line was us always, but then of course guitars weren't around in the Renaissance, and they all have numerous guitarists. So it's you can do what you want with your show, and so we're limited with shows like that. But it was fine.
I got you. It's just an interesting aspect of it because I could see where that could happen, where for whatever reason they decide that this is the type of show we're going to have versus this type of show, and isn't I love reworked show tunes and just funny humor that comes out of that. So, and to have it delivered by 2 executioners, even better. So nice. One of the chapters in the book is about the history of the Benevolent Order of Scurrilous Monks. Can you talk briefly about that group? Because I think that's a funny one.
Yes, Donald Heller is our abbot. It was kind of grew out of a weenie roast that we held. Early on, a lot of people weren't making much money, and there were a lot of people that were really hard pressed to even eat during the week, and so we started doing weenie roasts to feed the public, and we also we have gotten donations. There's a desire to found a Renaissance retirement home for Rennies that don't have other choices. We're not there yet, but we keep looking. I, by the way, am brother mother because of the fact that I traveled for 5 years with my infant daughter before she started school.
Wow, that's cool. So does your daughter remember all that?
Oh, she certainly does. As a matter of fact, she's now the crafts coordinator for 2 major shows. She's full-time in the business.
Awesome. That is so cool. I got to make sure I share the subtitle of your book. It's called, so the book is The History of the American Renaissance Festival, or Where Have All the Hippies Gone? And can you explain where you go with that?
Well, basically, if you read Rachel Lee Rubin's book, Well Met, she talks about the pleasure fairs in California and how it actually supported the growth of the hippie movement. And a lot of these folks actually came up with arts and crafts that they moved across the land in Renaissance festivals. And if you'll see a lot of the pictures of the people that worked the festivals, you can tell that they weren't exactly corporate types.
Nice. I think you're right. I think very much so. So, one of the things that really just changed a lot of stuff that we've done in this country was having to deal with COVID. Have the fairs have they been able to come through that okay and move on?
They've not only come through it okay, they have exploded since COVID. It's unbelievable. They're having problems with lines, with traffic, running out of food, crafters running out of product, because once people were able to come to a festival, come outside, go to something fun, it was just embraced, and people tried it for the first time and realized, hey, this is okay, and continued coming. So it's more popular than ever.
That's awesome. That's so cool, because that's just neat that they've survived it, and not only that, it's making people come out to them and enjoy it even more. So, do you have a favorite memory or story that you like telling about your time?
Well, this kind of justifies my choice to be a comedian entertainer. At the Muskogee Show, Oklahoma Renaissance Festival, I was hawking a show, and a large group of people came up. And I asked, is this a family reunion or what? And nobody said anything. So we finished the show. And after the show, one of the women came up to me and she says, I don't know if you remember, but last year, my father fell off a bench in your show. And I said, actually, I do remember that, but he seemed okay. And she said, oh, no, he was fine. He fell off the bench from laughing so hard. And she said, however, 6 months later, he actually did pass. But for the last 6 months of his life, he was chuckling about you guys' act every day. And so the family decided to come to your show in honor of him.
That's awesome. That is so cool. What a neat thing. Because I would be worried too when the conversation started out the way that it did. Wow, that's awesome. So cool. I'm sure that everybody that goes to a Renaissance Festival comes away with whatever it is that's their own thing that they remember, But I got to tell you, I can't think it. I've never actually had a chance to thank a festival performer, but it's so cool to be able to have that chance to escape into this world, and they make you feel like it's like you're someplace that you're not, and then just forget everything, and then like I said, I live for those bad jokes and food and just different things, but you just never knew when you were being set up for something to happen. Where, so like I said, I just innocently picked up those coins. And that's what set her off. As soon as someone picked it up, then you got to meet her. And I wish I could remember exactly what she called herself, but I don't. But good stuff. If someone wanted to follow up and connect with you and learn more, where would you send them?
They could get to me by email, Alan Olson, ALLENOLSON 51 at gmail.com.
Very cool. Very cool. I'll have that in the show notes. And just to make sure, I want to make sure it's ALLENOLSON 51.
Yes.
Cool. No dot between anything, right?
No.
Excellent. So I'll make sure that's in the show notes and have it there. Tell me about, let's talk before we finish up, because I got to ask you. So talk about how long it took you to put the book together. What did it?
It took 30 years. I gave it a rest for a little while because we started losing some shows, and I was a little disheartened by the whole thing. But then a fellow was filming a documentary, Chris Gomersall, and throw up, the juggling act that he was featuring in the piece, and told him that he needed to talk to me if he was actually going to try to do something about the industry. And his excitement about what I had collected and the photos and such was so great that it inspired me to finish it up.
That's cool. That is awesome. Well, it's like I said, it's filled with pictures. You have the different everything from drawings to the characters in and out of their costumes, and the stories that they tell and share. And it's a wonderful capturing of who everyone is. And I think that is just amazing. I'm glad that you spent time, even if it did take you 30 years. So it's cool. So do you make appearances still as Smee anytime?
Oh yes, I went up to Connecticut. I did one weekend performing and one weekend signing books. I perform regularly in Norman, Oklahoma at the Medieval Fair, and I finally just got a contract to perform next year at Scarborough Fair, which is the closest show to me, 40 minutes away. And I'll be traveling out to the Maryland and North Carolina show to sign books. I haven't contacted them about maybe doing a show, but I'm considering that too.
Very cool. So do you put on your website your schedule, like when you start traveling like that, or? Yes.
I've been a little bad about it at times, but I'm supposed to do that. I try to.
Nice. Okay. Well, I encourage you to do that. That'd be cool to be able to come find you and say hi and see you in your and see whatever fun's going to be made of me then. So I love it. Well, thank you so much for sharing your book. Thank you for doing it, and thank you for being making people laugh and escaping in those worlds. Before we go, I have a couple questions I'd just like to ask you. That I like to ask my guests, and the first one is, how do you keep going when so much is going on that you may want to quit?
Well, in my case, I realize that my time is limited, and I have a long list of projects that I still want to finish. And so basically, if I find a dead end somewhere, whatever, I just move on to a different project. As a matter of fact, I'm working on a second book right now about Renaissance because the only complaints I've really gotten are from people that complained about not making it into the first book. And so I'm doing another project there. I'm working on promoting this book, and I've got a football history play that I'm trying to work on, as well as any number of other things. And so I just bounce from project to project.
I got you. That's so cool. And kudos with all, wishing you the best with all that stuff you got going on. One last question I got. Do you have a teacher in your past who made a difference in your life? If so, who was it? And what would you say if given the chance to say thank you?
Yes, actually I have a couple that I thought I could maybe mention. Cool. My sixth grade teacher, Mr. Bruce, he got me involved in radio and theater, and he challenged me individually with things in class, which was nice. And then in high school, my advanced algebra and math analysis teacher, Mr. Akins, he was the same way. He had a 10-point grading scale, but he gave very difficult tests. And so you could get anything up to about a 13 on that 10-point scale, depending on how your work was, because almost nobody could always finish the problems. But he appreciated your approach and encouraged things. And then he encouraged me. He knew that I had a girlfriend that I spent a lot of time with at the time. And he made a point of telling me to keep my priorities straight. He says, you need to go to college, and so don't do anything stupid.
Nice. Very nice. That's cool. So I got I got to ask you a question before we go, before I finish up. Could you be Smee for a minute?
Oh, certainly. I could perhaps offer another joke.
Please do.
Did you hear the one about His Majesty's tailor?
No.
Yes, he was found guilty of altering his accounts. And they got the whole story straight off the rack.
Nice. I like it. Okay, we You got to do a couple more. What you got?
When a stubborn prisoner will not confess, when my utmost efforts meet no success, when they laugh through the pain, one solution remains. It's a dumb, dumb song. So we sing this tune for about an hour till they can't hold out. It's beyond their power, 'cause it sticks in your head till you wish you were dead. It's a dumb, dumb song.
That is awesome. Awesome. All right, you got one more to go, and then I'll close this out.
All right, let me see here. Look sharp, feel sharp, be sharp. If you want to look sharp, when you chop off a head, you want to feel sharp. When you leave them for dead, then be sharp. Hire a pro instead, 'cause we're cutting prices to the bone.
Excellent. Love it, love it, love it. Al, thanks so much for talking with me. The history of the American Renaissance Festival is an awesome walk down memory lane. The pictures, stories, characters, and tales behind the scenes. Oh, so cool.
Did I mention, I mentioned singingexecutioners.com.
Yes.
Is where they can buy autographed copies of the book.
Oh, cool. So singingexecutioners.com, there's autographed copies. You can order an autographed copy of the book.
Yes.
Very cool. Excellent. And I'll have those websites in the show notes so they can find that, which is cool. And very good stuff. This is thanks for giving this book, this history book, to all the followers, all the attendees, all the characters and performers as well. And good luck when working on the second version of it, because I can only imagine that they're like, wait a second, what about me?
Yeah.
Very cool. Wishing you success in all you do, and thank you so much for laughing and making us laugh and being a part of getting people in a different world. I like that.
Thank you very much.
Hey, you have been listening to Teaching, Learning, Leading K12, a podcast to help you help kids achieve their dreams. Teaching, Learning, Leading K12 is a member of the Education Podcast Network. Podcasts for educators, podcasts by educators. Teaching, Learning, Leading K12 is a member of the podcast network based in Canada called Voice Ed Radio. Voice Ed Radio. Your voice is right here. The opinions expressed on Teaching, Learning, Leading K12 are those of the guests and host. Teaching, Learning, Leading K12 is intended to share ideas, advice, and suggestions. Teaching, Learning, Leading K12 is produced for educational purposes. Hey, thanks for listening. It would be awesome if you visited my website at stephenmiletto.com and connected with me, left a review, and listened to more episodes. And by the way, you could also share it with your friends, with your family, and your colleagues. Thanks so much. You're awesome.